This video is about creative philosophy for neurodivergent multi-potentialites. As a neurodivergent multi-potentialite, you're a creative person. For me, I believe our creativity is actually our authenticity, but it's also our personal growth, it's personal development. It's also a way to be able to emotionally regulate ourselves and to articulate all our thoughts, because we've got so many different thoughts. As you know, as a neurodivergent person, we have a deep emotional world. What happens is that we experience a lot of emotions, and what we tend to do is not process them. We tend to sweep them under the proverbial carpet. We'll say, hey, I'll deal with that problem or process that emotion later on, and of course we never do. And as a result, those emotions that are swept under the carpet compound, and then they overspill, and we lose our temper, we can get depressed, we can get burnt out. All these things happen because we are so emotional people, okay? Now, being creative and actually publishing your creativity, if you use these emotions, you can process them and create them into content. That's what I do. If I ever feel perfectionistic, I'll create content about being a perfectionist. If I feel unproductive, I might create a video about being productive. And what I'm doing is I'm processing my emotions, putting them out creatively to solve my problem, knowing that I'm also helping other people solve this problem too. For example, I have been struggling with perfectionism recently. So I'm creating this video which is solving my problem, but equally, at least for some of you, it's going to be solving your problem, helping you with your problems as well, okay? Now, this is me processing my emotions through creativity. Equally, it also allows me to articulate my thoughts, to join the dots and things, and to be more creative. So creativity is authenticity. So I am a more authentic person because I'm a more creative person, okay? So that's my belief. So we have two different philosophies here. One, for example, if you've ever seen any of Rick Rubin's podcast clips on social media, then you will have heard about the audience comes last. And of course, if you've read the book, you've obviously read that too, right? And then equally, you have another school of philosophy. Here's somebody called Jacob Collier. Unless you're heavily into music, you won't know who he is. He's a Grammy Award-winning, very talented musician. But commercially, he's not successful. From a record point of view, he sells a lot of tickets, but ultimately, he just doesn't really connect, which is kind of ironic, really, because he creates for the audience, whereas Rick Rubin doesn't, and he is one of the most successful producers in the world, or in the history of music, right? So it is kind of ironic. But anyway, there we go. We'll get into that. So we have two different schools of philosophical thought. We have the audience comes last versus creating for the audience. So let's deal with creating for the audience first, right? So if you've got a piece of work and you're creating for the audience, well, what does that do? As a multipotentialite and neurodivergent, that triggers your perfectionism. So what is perfectionism? Well, you want the audience to like it, right? If you're creating work specifically for the audience, you want them to like it. You don't want to feel rejected. And that creates a lot of pressure. And the thing about pressure is it crushes your creativity. And that's a well-known proven fact, right? So what happens is, when you are scared of getting rejected by the audience, you tend to play it safe. You conform your creativity. In the same way that people conform in terms of people-pleasing in relationships, they sacrifice their own emotions because they want to please other people. So for a creative person who's feeling perfectionism, what you're doing is you're conforming your creativity to please somebody else. So in other words, this can never be authentic because ultimately you're creating for the audience as opposed to yourself. And this is something that Jacob Collier just doesn't get. But that's a different story, right? Now, the other problem is creative decision-making. As you know, decision-making is a huge fucking issue for us, right? We're not very good at it, right? And here's the thing that I see all the time. So basically, when you are trying to create for the audience, you're trying to second guess what the audience likes, okay? And the reality is you just can't do that. David Bowie talked about this. He said that he was a very selfish, creative and performer because he always created or performed for himself because he couldn't possibly second guess what the audience wants. When you try and second guess what the audience wants, you get stuck, okay? Because does the audience want this? Do they want this? Do they want this? Do they want that? You have no idea. And as I say, in most cases, the audience don't know what they want themselves, right? So this is why people get stuck, right? So you end up second guessing your decisions. And if you don't know what the audience wants, you don't know what to create, and as a result, you end up creating nothing. You get overwhelmed and you create nothing, right? And then, of course, there's the fear of failure. So your identity is wrapped up in your career, right? So you, again, anytime you're creating to please other people. You're people-pleasing with people if you're ever creative because you fear failure, right? And that means that reinforces your feelings of not being good enough, the fear of rejection, and the fear of judgment. So all these things here cripple your creative potential. In my view. Now, as my view is, by the way, 28 years as an artist manager in the music industry, I managed some of the biggest DJs in the world at the time from scratch. The same with a multi-platinum pop band who sold millions of albums, number ones, sold out arenas, etc., etc., etc. Right? Again, from scratch, and I co-manage them. So this is my creative belief. Now, you don't have to agree with that. That's no problems with me. This is my experience, and both personal and as 20 years in the music industry. Then we can reference this against the audience comes last. So what happens here, right? Well, you can create for yourself. If you create for yourself, you're creating authentically. If I'm creating this bit of work here, this bit of work, how pretentious of me. If I'm creating this video here, which I obviously am, I'm creating this for me because I'm currently experiencing perfectionism, and I'm falling back into these trains of thoughts. So I'm creating this video for me to solve my problem and something that I like. I hope you like it. But I'm not making it for you. I'm making it for me. So this is creatively authentic, right? I'm not going to edit this. This is the second take. I'll probably go with this one. I'm not spending loads of time trying to perfect it and make it and get rid of everything. Fuck it, right? If you don't like it, no problems. That's cool, right? I'm doing this for me, right? So the reason I do this and the reason we are creatively authentic is you know what you like. I know what I like. There's less pressure. I'm not trying to please you. If it pleases you, great. If it doesn't, who cares, right? This is high performance creativity, okay? Because I'm focusing on the process and not the outcomes. As soon as you start focusing on the outcomes, I want to make this a hit record. I want to go viral, blah, blah, blah. That's when these things don't, because we overthink it, right? Really what we have to do is create the best content we possibly can for ourselves. And then if enough people agree with us, it will do well, okay? So you can take all the creative risks and create something special. I don't need to, perfect this for you, right? And then it's creative decision making. This is the most important part for me, right? It's much easier to make decisions because I know what I like, okay? Let's say I was in the t-shirt business. I've used this metaphor or analogy before. If I'm in the t-shirt business, but I can only print one color, and I'm trying to find out what the audience want, well, some of them like black, some of them like green, some of them like white, some of them, I have no idea what color of t-shirt to create if I can only create one color. But I know that I like black t-shirts. He said wearing a brown one, a khaki one. But I like black t-shirts. So basically what I do is I create a black t-shirt, okay? I'm creating something for me, and then I'm finding an audience that agrees with me, as opposed to try to second guess what the audience wants and then create something for them, right? So these are two different creative philosophies, right? That means I don't get stuck. I know what I like, so I don't have to sit there and go, oh, I wonder if the audience will like this. I wonder if this is like this. I'm just creating this because this is what I need in this particular time. If you like it, great. If you don't, okay. So that means I don't get stuck. And if I don't get stuck, that means I get more done. And if I get more done, that means that builds my creative confidence, because then it's motion theory. I'm in motion, right? Whereas when I'm stuck here trying to second guess, overwhelmed with perfectionism or creative decision making or the fear of failure, trying to second guess what the audience wants, I am stuck. And if I'm stuck, you know what happens? I'm not taking any action. And what happens then? I'm beating myself up. Why? Because our self-esteem is directly linked to our productivity. So if I'm creating for myself, I'm in motion because it's for me. I know what I like. And therefore, I'm not beating myself up. My creative self-esteem is up. If I'm over here, I'm constantly second-guessing whatever people want, then I'm stuck, I'm not taking action, and therefore I'm beating myself up. And this is why, for me, I believe the audience comes last, is a superior creative philosophy to creating for the audience. You can definitely do it. It works. It definitely works. But for me, this is a lot more creatively, there's a lot more anxiety, stress, overthinking. It's a lot more forcing it, whereas this is more about flow and this is more about forcing, right? So this is creative flow and this is like forcing, people pleasing. It's horrible. Anyway, that's that, and I hope this helps, and I'll see you next one. Peace out.